Hi everyone, it's Nathaniel here with Beginner Food, and in today's video we're going to be talking about side dishes, how to pick them, and some example ones that you can use for your meals every day. So before we get started, don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive right in. Alright, so our first tip for side dishes is you're looking to balance the flavors. If you have a really fatty main, you might want something with some acidity, some lightness as a side. Now, you may also say, well, I want to double down and I want this to be the heaviest dish in the world. So maybe you're going to stick something really heavy and unctuous like a mac and cheese next to it as well. You're the one who's designing the meal, but that's really what you're going to be making decisions on when you're picking sides is, do I want to complement this? Do I want to contrast this? And it's going to be everything in terms of how it feels in your mouth, the flavor, whether it's going to be salty, sweet, tangy, bitter. That's really what your options are going to be when you're picking a side dish out. All right, number two, keeping it simple. You don't have to make a crazy item for a side dish. That's really the whole purpose of having your main. Your main is supposed to be the star of what you're doing. So when it comes to this side dish, keep it simple. And really only start adding complexity as you feel comfortable. Some really quick ideas are you're really looking at carbs and you're looking at vegetables. So those are probably the two most common sides. Maybe you're gonna do both, but something as simple as grilling vegetables, roasting vegetables, or obviously a salad is something we're all familiar with as a side. Those are all pretty simple things that you can throw together with a main item to make a more complete meal. On the carb side of things, we're all really familiar with things like potatoes and rice as being two of the most popular carb-based sides. Now, if you want to do that as simple as a baked potato, as simple as a mashed potato, or as simple as white rice, start there and start pairing things together before you go about expanding, making a pilaf, or making a ratatouille, or really complexifying what your side is. All right, and our next tip, number three, is to complement the main item with everything that isn't flavor. Some ideas there are texture, are their color, they could be smell, they could be size. Maybe you have a gigantic main, you want a really, really tiny side, or vice versa, or even the shape of what things are looking like. Maybe your side is going to be a scallop, so it's a circular cylinder, and you want it to be on something that's really square and rectangular. So really you're looking to complement your main item with everything that isn't flavored. You already have to have the flavors right. Now let's talk about everything else. So if you have a kind of soft or mushy main, or maybe something doesn't have a lot of structure, maybe your side should be on a piece of toast or a crostini, or maybe it's one of those little cheese cracker tweel things where they're really crunchy, and so you're adding texture and depth into your meal that you're preparing. So just a couple ideas there. Complement everything that isn't flavor now when it comes to your sides. All right, and number four, think about the meal and what you're preparing. Obviously, there's a lot of traditions out there, and there's some norms too. It's not very common you see hash browns with your dinner. It's not very common where you're seeing a rice pilaf with your breakfast. Same thing in terms of cultural and culinary boundaries. At least when you're starting out, try to see why do we serve certain things with each other. You're not going to be doing, like some crazy cheese dish with sushi, for example. Fish and cheese don't often go very well together. They do in certain contexts, but they don't in a lot more. And there's a reason for that. And so as we stay kind of around the norms when it comes to sides, it'll make us a lot more comfortable when we're starting out before we can start expanding and really pushing the boundary on what does and does not go together. So when you're looking to make sides for your everyday meal, pick something that feels a little bit more comfortable, and why don't you try expanding on that first? Take a mashed potato, now it's a garlic mashed potato. Take the garlic mashed potato, now it's a truffled garlic mashed potato. Now you're adding Parmesan to it. Maybe now you're increasing how much butter is in it. Maybe now you're putting cream in it. Maybe now you're putting thyme in it. But you're taking one thing and now you're developing it, and you're developing your skills with that one side. All right, so let's talk about just some real simple side dish ideas. We took that example of mashed potatoes. We all have an idea of what mashed potatoes are. We have an idea of things that we've had before that come with mashed potatoes as a side. So as we develop that, we actually have a recipe for garlic mashed parsnips, which is something that predated potatoes in the old world. So that's something where we can now take our potato side, we can take how we've developed it by adding in flavors like garlic, and now we're gonna swap out the starch, parsnips for potatoes. And as the cook and as the person designing the meal, you can really start to see how changing out the carbs and adding in these additional flavors and developing these additional levels in your sides is going to impact your dish. One really good example with the parsnips is they're a lot lighter than potatoes are when you're eating them. They're also a little bit sweet, so they bring in a little bit of a different flavor than a mashed potato would. They're also much creamier. They don't really have a starchy consistency to them, even though they are a starch. So you can start seeing how these changes in just one ingredient can really impact your entire dish. Another side that we've already talked about is a mac and cheese. I think a mac and cheese is a really great starting point for you as a cook because you can customize it however you want. You can change the cheeses, you can change the noodles, you can change the protein, you can change pretty much anything about it. You can add in more vegetables. You can completely remove any of the milk or the bechamel and do straight cheese. So I think a mac and cheese is a really good side for you to start experimenting with, get comfortable with, and start changing up and really tailoring to whatever your main's gonna be. If you're doing a more Mexican main, maybe you're gonna use chorizo. If you're doing an Italian one, maybe you'll throw some basil in that mac and cheese. Maybe you'll switch again those noodles out to a penne or a rigatoni. So now it's much more of a baked ziti kind of mac and cheese. But that's a really good example of how, again, we can take our side and really start molding it to the rest of our meal. All right, and of course, one of the most popular side dishes out there is rice. We actually have a recipe for a butternut squash risotto. It is rice, but it's pretty fancy rice. But it's a good idea for you to be able to take something like that, take a side dish and start, again, changing things out. Maybe you don't want to do butternut squash. Maybe you want to do sweet potato. Maybe you want to use mushroom instead. Maybe you just want it to be cream. A recipe that we're thinking about coming soon is a saffron risotto. But just like a mac and cheese, just like a potato, it's really easy for you to take that base idea and start changing things. Try a different herb. Maybe you're going to try sage today. Maybe you're going to try chives today, and really see how that changes the profile of your side and your overall meal. And one of the last kinds of sides that we didn't really talk too much about is fruit. So we talked a lot about starches, we talked a lot about vegetables, but you can also make fruit a side. Anybody who's ever had teriyaki anything, even if you go to fast food, is pretty familiar with a grilled pineapple. Grilled pineapple is one of those things that works very well with savory dishes. It works well with pork, it works well with beef, it works well with chicken. So you see it a lot in that kind of preparation. But there's other fruits that you can grill too. You can grill apples, you can grill peaches, you can grill nectarines. So same thing, we're gonna wanna see different approaches, different interpretations of a grilled fruit on the side of your dish. You can even grill a watermelon. It goes really great with a lot of summer dishes. So start trying out those subs, those swaps, experiment, and know that it works with everything from fruit and vegetables to your carbs and your starches. So hopefully these tips will help you get started on sides and how to make them, how to change them, how to put them together with your main. If there was anything that we missed, Your favorite side, maybe we didn't talk about it. Maybe we talked about one that you really didn't like. Let us know that in the comments as well. We want to hear from you guys about what are you doing with your sides? What do you like? So make sure you like and subscribe. I'm Nathaniel from Beginner Food, and thank you.